Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special week here in the VML. My name is Nicole Callahan, also known as Lady of the Crease, joined this week by Mishamigo, also known as Magic Mishamigo. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty great. How are you doing, Nicole?
I am doing wonderful. Again, I want to welcome everybody to the VML sponsored by Wizards of the Coast and GLHF. And before we get into more excitement for this week, this first playoff week, I want to take a moment to give a sincere and heartfelt thank you. Since the inception of the VML, we have stood in solidarity with amazing transgender people, making our community, transgender people make up our players, our judges, our casters, our viewer, our whole community. You are all welcome here. We are allies of all transgender people, and we absolutely welcome, and it is an absolute honor to have you all be a part of us and a part of our community. Thank you for helping us grow and change the normal Magic the Gathering scenery, and we adore every single one of you. Again, VML is a very open, welcoming, and fantastic place for people of all marginalized genders. But today on Trans Day of Visibility, we want to recognize all of the wonderful transgender people of our community. So thank you all for being a part of this and making us what we are today. We are in our 9th season, which is super impressive. From where we started just about 3 years ago, we've come a very long way. And this season, we have 128 players total, an endeavor that we took on last season, doubling our normal player field. And this will be our first week of playoffs here in season number 9. We are going to be watching the top 32. So this is where players are starting to battle for the prizes, the good stuff, the invites, the cash definitely. And also for the first time, we are having a VML championships this year. The top 8 from seasons 8, 9, and 10 will all be invited to the VML championships, and the top 2 players at these championships will receive an invitation to the following Magic the Gathering Pro Tour. It's an invite-only 24-player event. Super exciting. It's amazing, and I can't tell you how much of a pleasure it has been to be a part of the VML, as I've watched this community just grow and flourish and just be so absolutely amazing. So it's been an honor and a pleasure to be here since the get-go. And how are you feeling, Misha? Are you excited to get this ball rolling?
Absolutely. The playoffs, of course I'm ready for this. I'm going to take it from 32 down to 16 this week.
Oh, it's right. Slice it in half and down from 128. So this is like cream of the crop, tip of the top, like these players are serious business. They all came here meaning business, from our first seed to our 32nd seed. And we will have the pleasure of watching our first seed play tonight as well. But let's take a look at the metagame breakdown for this week here in the top 32. So you would imagine players putting their best foot forward this week. And we kind of see that in the best decks that, what most people were saying have been the best decks in the format, in Grixis midrange, followed by mono white midrange, and then kind of a smattering of others. We see Reanimator kind of falling off, mono blue tempo always kind of hanging out there in the middle. Esper Legends kind of fell off a little bit here too, and it looks like some people, kind of sampling around. We see some, enchantments there. Like, I remember playing enchantments back when Kaldheim was legal. So there's some wild deck choices here and some really, structured ones. What are your thoughts on this breakdown there, Misha?
Honestly, I was a little surprised. Like, obviously, I knew Grixis midrange, mono white midrange. Those were definitely going to make the cut. But Orzhov midrange, that's one we haven't seen a lot this season. And for that to be in like our, number 3, number 4 slot, I was a little surprised. And then, of course, like you said, Selesnya enchantments. That one hasn't been too common this season. Simic Bogles, I remember like week 1, week 2, I saw some Simic Bogles lists, and I was like, I'm down for it. And here we are at the end, and I'm still down for it.
Yes, and remember, VML is open deck lists. So, part of the fun is maybe even trying to metagame it. Top 32 deck is your top 32 deck. The players that win this week will submit a new deck for top 16. So there's some sort of trying to metagame your opponent too, or trying to catch them off guard. So you submit a Simic Boggles deck, your opponent might be like, "Oh, well, all right then." So, like I gotta
I didn't
look up some
prepare
deck
for that.
lists. So definitely an interesting breakdown here, and we are going to very shortly move into once again a live feature match here, even more exciting this week because it is live to stay alive here in the VML playoffs in season number 9. Our first competitor is Amanda, and she has brought mono blue tempo. So any thoughts about this mono blue tempo deck? Really didn't get any new exciting cards or fun new surprises from Phyrexia All Will Be One. So it's kind of been the same deck, but it's sort of like old reliable at the same time. Anything jump out at you in this list?
Well, I mean, you got your hottie Jins. That's your main boy there. You want that guy. He's gonna give you your discount. He's gonna get big. Um, that's what we're really looking forward here. And then just it's tempo. You want to have your balance, and you want to have a little bit of counter spells up. So I think mono blue tempo is just it's always a solid choice. No matter what deck you're playing against. Obviously it's a little bit harder against, some more aggro when there's a lot of targets, but I think with both mono white and Grixis being big contenders this season, and that's what you're like kind of hoping to hedge against, it's not a bad deck to play, especially when you're going into this top 32 and you've got no idea what your opponent's going to choose.
Yes, absolutely. And Amanda said they were trying to sort of, play something that they expected to be good against what their opponent had played in previous rounds. And that didn't quite work out, but still excited to play tonight as our 32 seed squeaking in at 4-3. You love to see it. Now let's take a look at our number 1 seed, 7-0. Most impressive record of the season of all our 7-0s is Talia, and she is bringing Azorius tempo. So we take a look at, you could really call it sort of Azorius toxic deck here. And anything jumping out at you here? It looks like a control-y, just poison counter deck we have here. A lot of Skrelv's Hives and fun things like Crawling Choruses, some of the creepier cards out of Phyrexia All Will Be One. Any thoughts into what this deck is looking to do in this matchup?
I think this deck is looking to push that poison to get a little bit wider. If we're going with tempo, if you make more and more creatures, the tempo can only really hold back so much. So I think our biggest combat here is can you push that 10 poison before your opponent gets that hottie Jin out and slaps you for lethal? So I
Yes.
think it's going to be an interesting race to see if you can bounce the Jin, um, or counterspell it, or just if you can prevent that Jin from really getting big on board versus getting a bunch of little Skrells, little Cortuses out there and just punching through with poison.
Yes, and so we're gonna see how these two decks match up live here on stream tonight. We have Talia, our number 1 seed on Azorius Tempo, versus Amanda, our number 32 seed on Mono Blue Tempo. I don't know if I should call it Azorius Tempo or Azorius Toxic. I'm like kind of Azorius Tempo Toxic,
Well, while
I
AT&T.
we
like that, the
wait,
ATT.
while we wait, since this is Trans Day of Visibility, or at least in my case, audibility, uh, I do want to thank Meebo for the raid with 18 viewers. We are so happy that you joined us. Thank you for kicking in. So, let's see here.
Yes, we love the support. Thank
Uh,
you very much, Meebo, one of our competitors and community members. They are
okay,
phenomenal.
one other thing I should note. I'm not doing anything for April Fools this year, honestly. I thought about it. I really did, but it looks like Wizards of the Coast may have done my job for me.
Oh, goodness. Oh, baby. Thank you. I was going to say, don't keep us on till after midnight so that it's April Fool's somewhere right now, isn't it? Well, it looks our players are ready and raring to go as we see a Skrelv's Hive come down on Talia's side. Fading Hope is going to take care of the first token off of that Skrelv's Hive, but once it gets out on the battlefield, it's a little difficult to deal with from Amanda's side. Wouldn't you say that, Misha?
Yeah, I would completely agree because you're gonna keep getting those little critters out there, and you can only bounce so many, and they're gonna keep coming.
Yes.
But at the same time, that terror is a nice blocker against all of those. So if we can get enough spells in the graveyard and get a terror out there, and hope to not get counterspelled, you might be in a good spot.
Yeah, as we see Amanda a little land heavy at the moment as she draws that was 4 lands in hand. Now 4 lands on the battlefield, 3 lands in hand. Probably does not want to see another land for the rest of this game. Going to try to cast that Tolarian Terror, having drawn out the first Make Disappear from Talia, but she's got a second one. So Talia will make disappear that Tolarian Terror. It'll go to the bin and make disappear also the draw step for Talia as the first damage and first poison comes through for Amanda. So that's Amanda up to 1 poison, down to 19 life. And Annex Sentry is the follow-up here. Just a 1/4.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes having a 1/4 is all you really need. And yeah, looks like Talia is just coming through with more and more poison. Amanda at 4 now, and it's unfortunate. Amanda's got those 2 make disappears, but you know, Talia's got the mana, and it's. I'm going to assume that Talia's probably she's gonna pay too, or
Yeah.
not.
Or not, and just say, you know what, that's fine. You know what, and having a second Make Disappear, that looks pretty desperate from Amanda's side. Gonna hope that this thirst for discovery will resolve, and it will. So drawing some gas here as and having the basic island to be able to discard, but now no longer having an island for the turn, is able to follow that up with the Haughty Jin that had been mentioned before. Amanda's already at 4 poison though, which is quite a bit. So we'll see Make Disappear taking care of that Haughty Jin and a
That
distorted
is
curiosity
that
enhanced.
3 make disappears from Talia's side now.
Yes, it was. That was a third Make Disappear. We see 4 more damage, 4 more poison coming through, and going to start off with an impulse here. Is Amanda going to be able to find a combination of cards to get her out of this?
I mean, that terror is not bad. That is a single blocker, but with just how many creatures are over on Talia's side, I don't necessarily think. Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
gonna be game one.
Yes, we see a reject imperfection, and Amanda's going to say, that's fine. Well, let's move on to game number 2 here between our first seed and our 32nd seed. Talia on Azorius tempo. We are watching from the side of Amanda on mono blue tempo. What kind of changes is Amanda going to go for here? It looks like getting rid of some of those heavier, the mana costed card draw spells and going to bring in some smaller counter magic. Any
Yeah,
thoughts?
I think that smaller counter magic's going to be key here because um, if she can just keep getting stuff out on that board, that's when you're in danger. So if you can prevent even one Skrelv's Hive from hitting that board, you might be setting yourself up for success later on.
Yes, as we see that Skrelv's Hive did run away with game number 1 here, as we're already ready for game number 2. This has been an exciting little go, go, go. No, tempo
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
think they should change this from mono blue and Azorius tempo to aggro because that felt
Right.
pretty aggressive.
And now what we see here, a Skrelv Defector Might from the side of Talia to start things off, and a land and just a pass of the turn back. Double slip out the back, a Spell Pierce, an Impulse, and a Haughty Jin in Amanda's hand. That Skrelv gotta come across. So getting that first poison, very important for Talia.
Yep,
And
I think we've
the
talked about it before. For poison, our key numbers are 1, 3, and 10.
Absolutely. So that one's there. And Pithing Needle is the draw here from Amanda. Let's see if this is going to resolve. And it looks like it will. And looks like the name will be Skrelv Defector Might. So it will be able to attack, but it will not be able to protect anything. So that's definitely interesting.
Yeah, honestly, letting things get through could prove to be Amanda's downfall. So she's like, I'm not letting Skrelv do that to me. So I'm gonna, gonna needle it.
Yeah, and it looks like trying to avoid any more poison counters, going to slip out the back targeting the Skrelv. So giving it a +1/+1 counter, but phasing it out until the next turn. So saying, you know what, push the pause button there. Consider going to move that haughty Jin, looking for another land, it seems like here. Consider to the bin as well. I'm going to draw another Talarian Terror. So if things work out, both of these Solarian Terrors are going to come down at a super discount next turn, as Skrelv is allowed to get into the red zone and across. Amanda down to 17 life and 2 poison. Solarian Terror coming out for 2 mana. So not interested in casting anything else at the moment. And we'll see a Make Disappear take care of that. And Amanda can't really do anything else here. So kind of
And we still
the
have the 1
opposite.
mana for the Spell Pierce, and we have the Slip Out the Back. I don't necessarily know if I'd want to slip out the back that Skrelv again, giving it another counter. But at the same time, you know, being able to Spell Pierce if Talia plays something is going to be nice, and that'll give that other Talarian Terror another discount. But we get the land instead, which we also needed.
Yes, we see Amanda drawing that 4th land. Super important here. Able to play out the Talarian Terror. 4 mana open on the side of Talia, and she plays out Bring the Ending, countering the target spell unless controller pays a 2, I believe.
I think that also has something to do with poison. I don't think you
Yes,
can if you have 3 if you're
it's 3 or
corrupted.
more. Yes.
Hmm.
So,
Which we are corrupted at this point.
and so we see Skrove, little guy's still going at it. Distorted Curiosity, going to draw a couple of cards here on Talia's side as well. And Crawling Chorus is going to be the follow-up here in the second main before passing back. And now drawing the 5th land. So probably good on lands. I feel like Amanda's saying, all right, that's good. Gonna try to
Yeah, it's
cast.
unfortunate because Talia just keeps getting counterspell after counterspell, and Amanda just can't get anything to stick to her side of the board. That spell
Yes.
pierce just not coming through because Talia has plenty of lands to pay.
Yes, a lot of mana open, and also has both a Seed Core and a Mirrex in play. So 6 poison. That's kind of a scary place to be. Another land here for Amanda. Slip out the back, a Spell Pierce, and a Thirst for Discovery in hand. Is it panic mode yet? Does she need to cast this Thirst for Discovery right now, or can she hold on to it?
I think she could cast it right now. We still have to slip out the back and the spell pierce available if needed. I don't know if the spell pierce is really going to do much. The slip out the back will probably be more. It's looking a little dire for Amanda right now.
Yeah, so if we see Thirst for Discovery resolving and drawing 2 lands in an impulse, discarding one of those lands, going to impulse a Fading Hope into hand, and kind of needs the hope that this is going to resolve. Fading Hope targeting that token. It will resolve, getting to scry an island to the bottom. Still going to take 2 more damage here. Oh, sorry, 3 more damage here, dropping down to 7 and going up to 8 poison. And Delver of Secrets, it's going to stick, but we know there is double Fading Hope in Talia's hand.
Yeah, gonna go for that fading hope now. Draw out any kind of counter magic Amanda may have, and you got the backup. So it looks like this may be game 2.
Yes, this might do it as Mirrex makes another 1/1. Amanda is at 8 poison, and all Talia's got to do at this point is turn him sideways. Now we have full information, so Talia says, you know what? Send them all into the red zone. If it connects, it works, and it does. So Talia gonna take this one down over Amanda, 2-1. So our Azorius tempo deck, an impressive showing. Jeez, that was quite a deck.
Yeah, I
Talia
don't
said,
think we really saw many decks like this. I know that we saw a lot of Selesnya toxic decks. I don't necessarily think we've seen many Azorius toxic. I'm gonna start calling this one AT&T Azorius Toxic Tempo.
I do. I love it. Talia said she champions her own, she's brought a lot of home brews this season, and I mean, it served her well because 7-0, and I guess if you count the playoffs now, 8-0. So congratulations to Talia, our #1 seed,
Yeah, I
moving
think people
on
need
to
to
the
start
top
looking
seeding.
to Talia for some
Yeah,
ideas because
right.
it looks like her decks have been doing pretty well.
Yeah,
So
Talia, if you're watching, check your messages on Discord. But good games also to our Mono Blue Tempo player, Amanda. Congratulations on making the playoffs. A great showing this season, and we hope to see you back again next season. But we're ready to move into our next match for the evening. So I'm still kind of like whirlwinded. We are going to be watching Mythic Mikaela on Esper Legends. It's definitely a pretty stock but strong list here. Just everything is legendary. We got your Thalias, you got your Denics, you got your Skrells, you got, of course, your Rafines, Sheoldreds. Is there anything that's really jumping out at you in this list? Is there anything that you see that is like, whoa, this, I wasn't expecting to see this?
I don't really necessarily think there's anything I wasn't, expecting. I think that Rafine is going to be a key piece to get the looting, to get to the pieces you need at the times you need them. So I think Rafine's going to be a big one. And then obviously Thalia, an early game tax. It's always a good thing to have in hand. So
Absolutely. Because we know that Mythic Michaela's opponent tonight is on Grixis midrange. So Thalia definitely proves to be pretty good against a lot of those removal spells, things like Fable of the Mirror Breaker and Invoke Despairs and things like that. So Mythic Mikaela, a veteran of the VML, just recently made it to the finals. The
season, I think it was
before last.
season
Season
7.
7. Yes.
Yeah.
Was battling the Mighty Linguini in the finals.
Yep,
So
I remember that season very well. That was my first season playing, and I made it to top 32, and Mighty Linguini knocked me out in first round.
oh, yeah, well,
But went on to face Mythic Mikaela in the finals.
right.
So
I feel like that always like it helps the burn though when you're like, oh, but the person who beat you
it,
won it all. So you're like, ah, I lost to
yeah,
the
it
person
burns a
who ended
little
up
less when you're like,
winning,
well, I
right?
lost to the winner.
But definitely love to see a Mythic Mikaela, such an amazing player, and it's always a pleasure to watch her battle. And tonight it will be against Nile Joan on Grixis midrange. So we're looking at a stock Grixis list here. Make you have your, I see a little make disappear. There's a couple of blade coil serpents in the main here, which is something that we've seen more and more lately. People picking and choosing kind of if they want to play more mirror breakers, not the fables, but otherwise like cards that are good against the Grixis mirror when they explore like longer, grindier games like Siphon Insights, Blade Coil Serpents. We've seen Razor Lash Transmogran a lot in the main deck. Any thoughts on this list at all, Misha?
Honestly, I really like the addition of a couple graveyard trespassers. Just a tiny bit of life gain, a little bit of a ward. I love it. I like that addition. Also, I was wanted to say that the Siphon Insight, I feel like we've been seeing a little bit less of that being played. But like you said, the Mirror Breakers. If you're playing a Grixis mid-range match, of course you want to steal your opponent's Grixis pieces. Why wouldn't you?
Right. It's a lot better when you get to cast 6 Invoke Despairs and they don't get
Exactly.
yes,
I'll cast mine and yours.
right? It's a beautiful thing. But Nile Joan has been, a Grixis diehard is saying Grixis. She and her testing team has been tuning Grixis ever since before the season even started. So let's see how these two decks throw down against each other. We have Nile Joan on Grixis midrange and Mythic Mikaela on Esper Legends. Any thoughts on this matchup going into it, Misha?
Ooh, I I think Mythic Mikaela, if she can get a Thalia out early, would really put a lot of pressure on Nile. Just trying to, be able to play anything. But we'll see. I think the Go for the Throats are a good addition to Michaela's uh deck. Just the only thing I don't think it'll hit is the Blade Coil Serpent. So
That is very true. As we see, both players keeping 7, getting the ball rolling. A nice curve on the side of Nile Joan. We see Blood Tithe Harvester, a Fable of the Mirror Breaker in hand, and an Abrade. along with 4 lands. So double Denick on the side of Mythic Mikaela. So having a replacement for your first Denick, because you're thinking it's probably going to die, an Urtai Resurrected, and double Go for the Throat, as well as a Plaza of Heroes to go with those lands.
Yeah, I'm very
So
curious if Nile is going to slam that Blood Tithe Harvester into the Dinnick, or if she's just going to abrade the Dinnick and slam through for damage. I think I might be in favor of abrading the Dinnick just so there's no incidental life gain.
yeah, it is definitely a choice here. It looks like before attacking, going to play the Fable of the Mirror Breaker and decide to kind of just keep Blood Tithe Harvester home. You know, good blocker. The 2/2, not so much a good blocker. Plaza of Heroes coming down here. Mythic Mikaela does have the option to go for the throat, and it looks like that what may be what she is doing, gonna take care of the Goblin Shaman token, and deciding to also keep Denick home. So we've got a staring contest between Blood Tithe Harvester and Denick, Pious Apprentice at the moment. We see Blade Coil Serpent in the hand of Nile Joan now, and
I was
that's
gonna say
only a couple
Nile
turns
seems to
away.
be flooding a little bit, but when you have a Blade Coil Serpent, that's not the worst. Granted, we know
No,
that Mikaela has an Urtai and some other options that do take care of that Blade Coil, but for Nile right now, it at least looks pretty good if you can get to that Blade Coil mana.
absolutely. And we see an interesting draw on the side of Mythic Mikaela. Lauren of the Third Path deciding not to play it out into the open mana, but a way to be able to kill this reflection of Kiki Jiki. We see
Mm.
Invoke Despair on the side of Nile Joan, and
Yeah, we
that
see a big nope from
Urtai.
Mikaela. We're
Yeah.
not going to invoke that despair. We're going to
No,
send
no,
that to the
no.
graveyard.
Could not have cast that any faster. And now another 3/2, another body on the battlefield for Mythic Mikaela. And perhaps Nile Joan, Corpse Appraiser, a good draw off of that Urtai, because it can definitely um, create some card advantage, but needs to be able to get to their next turn, her next turn to do that. So we see Lauren of the Third Path come down and take care of that reflection of Kiki Jiki. And Nile Jones's battlefield is feeling much emptier now.
Yeah, I was about to say I don't believe there's any creatures in graveyards yet for that corpse appraiser to eat, but now there are. Or at least there's
Yes.
one.
As we see, Go for the Throat is the draw from Nile Jones. So not able to cast that Blade Coil Serpent here. She's just going to abrade the Denick, and it looks like Corpse Appraiser will be the follow-up for her. Gonna take a little look, gonna eat that Denick, and take a look at the top 3. It looks like Blood Tithe Harvester to hand, and at least one land to the battlefield, to the graveyard off of that. And Rafine is the draw here. But it looks like Mythic Mikaela opting to keep it in hand. Any thoughts on that?
I find that a little interesting. I think I may have played the Rafine out and then attacked just to, we have one Plaza of Heroes. I think I may have potentially wanted to loot it away. And, we'd still be trading Urtai off either way, but you might have gotten a little bit more rummaging out of it.
I see. And Nile Joan will take the trade there, and Rafine's going to follow it up, and as well as a Denick. So, oh, yes, Denick is going to come down, but perhaps off of Plaza of Heroes to not have to pay a life off of that Caves of Koilos. And that looks like that will be the play. So Mythic Mikaela empty-handed, but a powerful board right now. And Aloran to draw both her and I guess Nile Joan cards as well. So if she feels the need to refill, she can do so at her leisure. Go for the throat, going to target Rafine, paying for the ward, and not too much that Mythic Mikaela can do about that. Going to take a quick look at the graveyard and let Rafine go. So Aloran and a Denick, all that's left on the battlefield. As we see Blood Tithe Harvester come down. Still not enough mana on Nile Jones' side to be able to cast that Blade Coil Serpent yet, but a Reckoner Bankbuster would also be able to draw some cards. Speaking of drawing cards, there goes Lauren.
Yeah, that seems to be a pretty good draw for Nile, getting another Corpse Appraiser, getting some more card advantage, as well as having the Bankbuster over there. Mikaela, on the other hand, getting a little bit flooded. The Agancho's not a terrible pickup here, though. It can take care of a few things. But Mikaela going to send that Dinnick.
Yeah, we see Dennick getting in, and Knowledge, I'm going to say, nope, nope, not interested. Go ahead, deal 2, gain 2. So Mythic Mikaela up to 24. Thinking about playing out that Dark Slick Shores, unsure if she wants to keep it in hand or not. And she is going to play it out as a tap land and pass the turn back, and still no 6th land on the side of Nile Jones. So we'll see Reckoner Bankbuster be the first play of this turn. And it'll be interesting to see if that Blood-Scythe Harvester is going to get in. And it looks like it will not.
Mikaela drawing both of them a card, though.
Yeah.
Okay, the Razor Lash Transmogritte. Not a terrible pickup for Mikaela. Another creature for the board.
Yes, we see Razor Lash is definitely a good card in this matchup in general. We've seen a lot of that in the Grixis and Esper mirrors. It is a 2 of in Mikaela's deck. So Dennick going to get in again, crewing up that Reckoner Bankbuster on Nile's side, and she's going to block. So Igenjo is going to target that Reckoner Bankbuster.
I think that was a good move. Taking that Bankbuster away from Nile is going to prevent, potentially 3 cards getting drawn on that side. So, if you bait it out, that's going to help because you're already at a little bit of an advantage. That Lauren's great for getting more cards, but it's not just you that are getting those cards.
We'll see Nile Joan has drawn her 6th land now, so is going to play it out. Whether or not she is going to actually just deploy this Blade Coil Serpent will be interesting, and it looks like she's very carefully tapping mana, so that may be the play here. Any thoughts?
I'm not sure. Like we know that Blade Coil Serpent comes in for different abilities depending on which colors you tap for it. So I'm interested to see if it's Blade Coil coming out. I'm pretty sure it's Blade Coil. Like you don't tap your mana like that if it's not the Blade Coil, right?
Yeah, it looks like interested. Going to tap 2 blue and 3 black as well as a colorless, because Mythic Mikaela only has 1 card in hand, so only able to have her discard 1 card, but Nile Joan doesn't have enough blue to draw more than 1 anyway, so is not going to bother damaging herself and not interested in giving the Blade Coil haste. That Mythic Mikaela has blockers and good blockers, and Razor Lash at that. So in response, Lauren will draw a card, trying to pad her hand a little bit on the side of Mythic Mikaela. Oh, yes, they did play. Okay, it was black, black, blue, blue. So that Caves of Koilos is going to hit the bin. And Razor Lash cannot block here. Lauren is tapped, but it looks like Nile Joan is not going to attack. So going to stay home. Nile Joan is at 12 life, and Mythic Mikaela is at a pretty healthy 24. So I'm guessing that Nile Joan does not quite feel comfortable enough to start attacking yet.
Yeah, I think Niall's probably keeping some stuff back for blockers. That Razor Lash, it's only good to really send it. Granted, the 5/4 can block that easily, but having the Blood Tithe Harvester, right now, Nile could sack that Blood Tithe Harvester and take out anything on Mikaela's board. We do now know that Mikaela has Urtai back. That's common knowledge for everyone because of the Takanuma. But that also makes it a little dangerous for Nile to play into, since you know Mikaela has that instant speed creature destruction or counterspell.
Yeah, definitely a scary place to be, as Nile Joan has a full grip here, playing a 7th land, and first play looks like it was thinking about Fable the Mirror Breaker, but perhaps not. Also has a Corpse Appraiser, could remove something with that cut down in her hand. It's a big choice to make. Like you said, Blood Tithe Harvester itself can take out anything on Mythic Mikaela's side, and having those 2 bloods can also loot away the other land in Nile Jones's hand. Oh, and it looks like Dennick is going to bite the dust, trading with that Blood Tithe Harvester. Corpse Appraiser going to come down and presumably eat that Dennick.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of it because if Nile were to take out Michaela's Dinnick on Michaela's turn and block, um, Michaela can just replay the Dinnick for the um oh, I always think of it as the ghost cost, but I can't think of what it's called. It comes back as a ghost. But as long as you do it on your turn and you can play that corpse appraiser, you can just eat it, and you're like, haha, you don't get to have that flashback. But we do know Mikaela has third Dinnick in hand.
Yes. And so plenty of Denix to go around on the side of Mythic Mikaela. And Nile Jones, trying to slowly take control of this game, but still doesn't feel like she's in the driver's seat quite yet. So looks like she's going to just kind of keep chipping away and trying to gain control of this board. Now, between the two decks, who would you say has the more powerful top decks if we're going one for one, Esper Legends or Grixis Midrange?
I'm gonna probably say Grixis midrange because if Nile were to draw a couple of Invoke Despairs, that'd put Mikaela in a kind of bad spot. So I feel like Nile definitely has a lot more dangerous stuff to work with that Mikaela might struggle to come back from. I think we're kind of starting to see a little bit of a turn of events currently where, Nile's already starting to, build up a bigger board, has a lot of blockers, has, just card advantage over Mikaela right now. So I think we're starting to round that corner where, Mikaela might have gotten through a lot in the earlier game, but Nile's starting to maybe come back a bit in this later game portion.
Yeah, and you're talking about card advantage, Nile Joan desperately wanted to keep that Urtai from getting onto the battlefield, was willing not only to make disappear, but to make disappear kicking with the corpse appraiser, sacrificing the corpse appraiser, and then passing the turn back to Mythic Mikaela. So that is quite a price to pay, because Nile Jones' board presence pretty much just got halved as we see Mythic Mikaela continue to build hers. So the third Dennick hitting the battlefield, and its second Razorlash Transmogrant was the draw off of the Loran there. So, and definitely interesting as we see making sure to tap the Plaza of Heroes to cast this 2-mana colorless creature.
Yeah, I think we obviously know that Nile has the cut down in hand that can handle, a good portion of what Michaela's got going on right now. But I think Michaela's setting up to try to Otawara the Blade Coil Serpent and just slam for lethal in one go. That's what I'm at least predicting right now.
Yeah, it seems like a decent and reasonable strategy, and we'll see. It looks like what she's concentrating on doing, as now Nile has drawn quite a few lands after not being able to draw that sixth land for quite some time. Has drawn, I believe it's 4 running lands. As we see Fable of the Mirror Breaker coming down here, making a Goblin Shaman token. At least a couple of them are the Xander's Lounge, so they do cycle, and Takanuma is a utility land, can bring something back from the graveyard, but there's not much else to speak of happening for Nile Joan right now.
But you know what's better than cycling? Free cycling with that Fable the next turn.
That is very true. That is very true. So being able to curate her hand, hopefully, as we see Lauren gonna say, draw some more cards. This Lauren, I should have had a Lauren counter for seeing exactly how many cards she has drawn. It's been a lot this game. And oh mama. Shieldred
I think
the
it's been like
Apocalypse.
5 or 6 at least.
Yeah, it has been a lot. There have been a lot of draws. And it's so funny to me because Mythic Mikaela keeps drawing and drawing and drawing, and Nile Joan has so many cards in her hand, and Mythic Mikaela just keeps playing hers out. So
Yeah,
we see.
Nile has definitely. I think when we asked the question of what would you call yourself? What would your title be? Nile said the Floodbringer, and that title's living up to its name.
That's a pretty epic title. I like that.
I thought it was very clever.
You see Otawara attempting to take care of this Blade Coil Serpent for a finite amount of time. And Nile Joan thinking about what her options are here. We'll see what she thinks, if she plans on doing something in response. And it looks like she might be considering killing that Denick.
I mean, the Razor Lash Transmogrants, they have recursion from the graveyard. So if we're going to take something out, the Denick with the life gain, seems like an okay idea. We don't have a way to take it out of our opponent's graveyard, but removing it from the board isn't bad. However, Shelly will come down, and that Fable is going to draw Nile a couple cards next turn, so that's going to hurt.
Yes,
potentially.
Yes, having Shelly with Lauren is much, much different than just having Lauren. So we see, and Mythic Mikaela said, it's time. I got to close this one out. And this little goblin shaman's going to have to do something. And
yeah, because we're drawing cards, we're slamming 6. Like, this could be the end.
Yes, we see down to 9 goes Nile Joan, and then down to 3 from those attacks. And no answer in hand for Shieldred, so needs to draw something here. And it looks like it was Blade Coil Serpent. So Corpse Appraiser going to take a look at the top couple, hoping to find something in there. Is there something in these top 3 cards that can take care of that Shieldred?
We're going to have to hit some removal off the top.
Yes, and it looks like
there's a go through the throat. That will take care of Shieldred.
That does definitely take care of Shieldred.
And Nile may not be out of it just yet, because that takes care of the Shieldred, but those Razor Lash Transmogrants, they've got recursion, so we might be cutting it close. There's a cut down, there's the blocker with the Corpse Appraiser, but it's looking pretty dicey for Nile right now.
Yeah, we'll see. Go for the throat too, targeting the Shieldred.
Yeah, that's right.
Plaza of Heroes is going to protect it, and that will take care of game number 1. So Esper Legends going to take down game 1 over Grixis Midrange. So we've got Mythic Mikaela up a game here as we're taking a look at her sideboard. Any thoughts on what to bring in and what to leave out? It looks like shaving a Shieldred, shaving a Rafine, shaving a Denick. Any interest in wedding announcements or AO or anything like that?
Honestly, do we add another Lauren? Because that seemed pretty strong.
I feel like Lauren definitely overperformed in that game.
Yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised by what I saw from Lauren. Because giving your opponent another card, that's usually not in your favor, except when it's in your favor.
Right. We'll see some quick cuts here. Wanting a Shieldred, not wanting any more of those Blade Coil Serpents in the deck anymore. And we'll take a look at 2 opening hands here. We got 2 lands on the top. No blue right now for Nile Joan, but that Soul Transfer that was boarded in on the bottom. Skrelv, Denick, Razorlash, Shieldred. So pretty nice curve on the side of Mythic Mikaela. Any thoughts about her opener?
Yeah, I mean, you got a 1, you got a couple 2s. Like, that's a strong opener for Mikaela. Nile did get a 3rd land, so that's good. And she has a cut down, Blood Tithe Harvester. So those are kind of what you're looking for in, your first 2 draw, or first 2 turns. So not bad. I think both the players had good starters.
No, definitely some solid hands here. Let's see, Blood Tithe Harvester on the side of Nile Joan being that turn 2 play, and Skrelv is going to be followed up by a Denick on Mythic Mikaela's side, but Skrelv staying home. 1/1 don't attack into 3/2s very well. So
I was interested because it looked like Mikaela may have been playing that Razor Lash Transmogrant, and I was like, that's not a bad idea. You can't block with it, but you can just slam it into a 3/2 and, try to trade it off.
I like this. Very aggressive. Blood Tithe Harvester going to kill that Skrelv. I'm going to say, get that little bugger out of here. I don't need the issues that Skrelv may cause later on down the road and going to cut down the Denic. So clearing out the board on Mythic Mikaela's side, but
Oh.
Adeline, an interesting draw on Mythic Mikaela's side. That
Yeah,
can run
if
away
I'm
the game real
Mikaela, I'm
quick.
like, this is fine because I've got something better.
We see Adeline coming down as a 1/4. Now we know Nile Joan does have a soul transfer in hand, is going to blood away one of the invoked despairs, needs to draw a land, and it looks like she will.
And
So
she finally gets her blue mana. That's really key. We haven't had blue over on Nile's side yet until now, which is great. Not for Mikaela, but getting that corpse appraiser, you're gonna eat that Denic.
yes, and Corpse Appraiser will be the play here. Was there any thought in soul transfer on the Adeline or even playing down a Shieldred to kind of throw up a blocker maybe?
I think those are considerations, but knowing that Mikaela may have that fourth mana to be able to play the disturbed side of Dinnick, and then you have to contend with a flyer, that's going to be a little bit difficult. Granted, Nile has quite a bit of removal in her deck, but if you don't have that removal and you don't have creatures that fly, that could get out of hand real quick.
As we see Mythic Mikaela playing out her own Shieldred here. So Adeline up to a 3/4, back down to the 2/4 because the Corpse Appraiser is just going to jump in front of that little 1/1 token. But Blood Tithe Harvester is the draw here from Nile Joan. At Obliterating Bolt, a Blood Tithe Harvester, Shieldred, Soul Transfer. Would really love to have a 5th land to be able to double removal spell here, but not going to be able to. So Nile Jones, she's just going to play out her own Shieldred. Now, Odawara is up for Mythic Mikaela. Do you think she deploys it here?
I think so. I think you have to take that shouldered off Nile's side and then hold up the negate, right?
That's these. By the way,
'Cause
these
yeah,
lands are
it's
just
it's
so
2
good
for
in these
Otawara
Legends
because you
decks.
have 2 legendaries, so yeah, you get to hold up that negate and,
Ooh, holding up Negate, drawing Skrelv to be able to protect your cards as well. So Adeline and Shield are both able to get into the red zone here with no fear Shakespeare. So Adeline and the token look like they're going to get through. That would bring Nile Joan down to 9. It's taking 4 damage. So just a chump block from Corpse Appraiser.
or
Or
not.
Or will Corpse Appraiser just eat the token again? Nile Joan debating what she can do here. There are options. None of them are very good. This is a scary place to be on Nile Jones's side. The Corpse Appraiser not very happy to need to be blocking either a 1/1 and taking 7 or blocking the 4/5 and taking 4.
Looks like she's gonna opt to block the 1/1 and take 7.
That's a
It's
lot.
Nile's in an interesting predicament because being stuck on or only having 4 mana and not having another land in hand, we can't get that Invoke Despair down. You can't do the Obliterating Bolt and a Soul Transfer. So she's probably hoping, like, can I please just pull another another land this next turn so I have options.
Yes, because time is quickly running out for Nile Joan, who will drop to 4 after this draw step, drawing a cut down.
Oh, that is not what we want to see right now on Nile's
No,
side.
she looks like she is going to be priced into casting the soul transfer, but we all know about the negate in Mythic Mikaela's hand, so this does not feel good. Negate going to
Yeah.
take care of that soul transfer. And Nile Joan left at 4 is going to be unable to block it with that shield draining for every card drawn. I don't think there is a way out of this.
No, I certainly don't see one.
Oh, so Mythic Mikaela just on the precipice of victory here in top of 32. All she's got to do is turn him sideways, but Nile Joan going to take care of it and say, that's fine. I know when I'm beat. Good games. Mythic Mikaela taking that one down 2-0. So Esper Legends taking down Grixis mid-range. Esper Legends has been a big weapon for people who have been anticipating their opponents on Grixis mid-range, and we see it wielded very skillfully here by Mythic Mikaela, moving on to top 16 once again in the VML playoffs. So good games to both of our players. Congratulations to Nile Joan for making the top 32 and making the playoffs, and congratulations to Mythic Mikaela for moving forward. That was a That was quite a match. It was a very exciting match. Game one kept going back and forth. I was like, oh, did she turn the corner? Is she stable? Is she gonna start attacking? So definitely a
Yeah.
very grindy matchup.
That was very, very enjoyable to watch. Like that game one, really, I was like, ooh, what's gonna happen?
Right. It looked like, Nile Joan might have gotten back into it, had so many cards in hand, but things just did not line up for her draws. But it was a very, very well played match from both sides, and we hope to see them both again next season. I look forward to seeing Mythic Mikaela battle later on in the playoffs. As we move on to our next top 32 match, we are going to be watching Skyler on Grixis Midrange. We're actually watching a Grixis Midrange mirror here. So talk about grindy. Now, you had mentioned earlier in Nile Jones's list that unfortunately what we did not get to see was those Graveyard Trespassers. Skyler, they are also playing Graveyard Trespasser. So an interesting a list here. And if there is a grindy card in standard, Graveyard Trespasser would be it. It's a 3/3, gain some life, drain some life. It gets in there, has ward, hard to remove. It's meant for, it's great in the early game, can go for a longer game. It's a great utility card. Love it. Do you see anything else here that stands out to you? Or do you have any opinions on Graveyard Trespasser in the mirror?
I really like it in the mirror. I think I just like the card, to be fair. I do find it interesting that Skylar is running a one of for both Gix's command and Brothers in the main board.
That is there. Yes, there is a one of Gix's command. That is definitely interesting. I kind of like that. It's utility. It's definitely a very flexible card.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely a unique one.
Yeah, and
And then we
that brotherhood's and playing against the mirror. 3 damage is pretty relevant for the corpse appraisers, blood tithe harvesters. You know, you're not sure, because I feel like some of these Grixis matches you don't always see the Shelly. Some it's been hit or miss throughout the season, but it does take care of a lot of them. The 2/2 token that the Fable creates. So the Brotherhood end is also just good utility because you could also take out the Bank Busters if you need to prevent card draw. So there's some good stuff even with that one of a Brotherhood's end in this deck.
yes. Oh, and I like Skylar's Praetor title, the Mother of Cat Tyrants. I like that one very much. I can relate to that. Maybe more puppies, but
Oh yeah, I've got a few a couple, and that's fitting for my life too.
And now let's take a look at Skylar's opponent this week. Will be Andrea, our 13th seed. Praetor title, Thought Dominator. That's intimidating. I'm a little scared.
I feel like she'd
That's a
be a
good
blue
praetor
card.
name. I do too. I do too. I like it. I feel like it's very on theme. I feel like that's very praetor-esque. It sounds pretty sweet, but also bringing a Grixis mid-range deck here as we see a slight bit of difference. So we see, no copies of Graveyard Trespasser. It's the 4 Blood Tithe Harvester, 4 Corpse Bracer, 3 Shieldreds. We see more Reckoner Bankbuster in the main. Skylar has 1 while Andrea has brought 3. So a card that seems to be pretty good in this matchup. And another card that is a one of that we've seen kind of like floating around is Anoint with Affliction.
Yeah,
But
I think that one's really interesting because Anoint with Affliction has corrupted, but this is not a corrupted deck. You're literally just going to use it for the exile target creature if it has mana value 3 or less, which we all know that, Grixis midrange, Blood Tithe Harvester's 2, Corpse
yeah.
Appraiser's 3, token, that's 0. So it hits a lot of options.
Yeah, most people playing only 2, maybe 3 Shieldreds nowadays anyway. And that's what you have your Go for the Throats for, as we see Andrea playing the full play set of 4, as well as the full play set of, obviously, Fable of the Mirror Breaker and Invoke Despairs here. So not that many, like divergence here, kind of just playing a very stock list. You have 4 Fable, 4 Invoke, 3 Reckoner, Bankbuster, 2 Make Disappear, the 4 go for the throats, then some other removal, like a smattering of cut downs, a braid, and the anoint with affliction. So definitely a pretty straightforward list. But those 4 Siphon Insight in the sideboard, I cannot wait to see games 2 and maybe 3 if those come into play here. So 4 Siphon Insight is no joke, taking up almost more than a quarter of the sideboard.
Yeah, I'm gonna imagine that in the sideboarding, those cut downs may be out and the Siphon Insights in.
Mm-hmm. Well, we will find out now in this Grixis mid-range mirror here in top 32 of the VML playoffs. Season number 9. Let's look at these opening hands. We are watching from the side of Skyler. They are on the bottom of the screen playing Grixis midrange. Our Grixis
Little
midrange player
dangerous on
top is
Skyler's
Andrea.
side. No blue in hand, but capable with that Bankbuster and the Fable. Yeah.
Yes, as we see, their first draw is the Make Disappear, so it doesn't feel great, but there's still plenty of play and still plenty of time before Skyler might even want to have the blue mana available. We will see as Andrea plays her second land here and is going to just pass the turn back. Not much to do. Skyler just jamming out that regular Bankbuster. Not afraid of any counter magic here. That's that. I feel like that takes some guts.
Oh, that's an interesting move, playing the Corpse Appraiser without having anything to eat. But I mean, it's a solid 3/3 on a board that is mostly empty because you don't have anything to crew your Bankbuster yet.
Yes, and we see Skyler playing out their Fable of the Mirror Breaker, making that Goblin Shaman token. Cut down is going to take care of that. So still lacking on the blue mana on Skyler's side, and honestly still lacking in a 4th land drop in general, as a Braid is also going to take care of the Reckoner Bankbuster. Going to draw a land for turn, but it is a Xander's Lounge. So we'll see Make Disappear and Corpse Appraiser both hit the bin. Going to draw a
that
second
Xander's Lounge is at least nice. Like, it might be delayed a turn, but you do finally have blue mana. And you're getting your second Fable out. Looks like Skylar's going to be able to make a comeback. Unless, Andrea's like, how about we don't with that braid?
Yes. Then we'll see that take care of that Goblin Shaman token as the Fable of the Mirror Breakers both tick up. This one to chapter 3. So we have a reflection of Kiki out on the battlefield. And no loot, though, from that second chapter. That's always scary. When you see your opponent go, yeah, my hand's perfect. I would like to keep everything. That's it. That makes me take a second and sit back and go, oh, is it so? We'll see this Corpse Appraiser getting in the red zone. So
that Corpse Appraiser has done a lot of damage.
Right? We see Skyler is at 11, and that one of Anoint with Affliction and going to take care of the reflection of Kiki. So to the exile pile and Invoke Despair on the side of Skyler, going to finally take care of that pesky Corpse Appraiser. Another reflection out of Kiki out on the battlefield for Skyler. Going to draw a couple lands off the Invoke Despair. A Sheoldred gonna die here in the upkeep. So Andrea left with nothing but an Invoke Despair. But I feel like if you had one card to pick that you could have in your hand, Invoke Despair might be it. So
I think that's exactly what I want to see in my hand when my opponent has an enchantment creature and a regular creature.
yes. Now the question will be, oh my goodness, Corpse Appraiser. The first Corpse Appraiser found the Grixis command. The second Corpse Appraiser found an Invoke Despair. So that is pure gasoline on the side of Skyler. Even with this Invoke Despair, now the question is, do they sacrifice their Corpse Appraiser and their reflection? And it looks like the answer will be yes. They did have the option of sacrificing the reflection of Kiki as the creature and then taking 4 and allowing Andrea to draw 2 cards, but not going to do that, saying, I'm far enough ahead. What do you think about that decision?
I think it's a little risky, but I think it's the right decision because at that point you just don't want Andrea to get more cards. You're the one that is at an advantage. You have more cards in your hand. So if you do have to take a little bit of damage, granted, you do have a couple of Shieldreds. So there is the potential for life gain. That Graveyard Trespasser, also life gain. So a little risky, but I think it's a good payoff.
Yes, and unfortunately for Andrea, we see she got a little bit flooded out there at the end, and we will see Skyler take down game number 1 in this Grixis mid-range mirror. Moving to sideboards, we see a lot of counter magic and hand disruption, duresses,
Hmm.
disdainful strokes. Give me my negates. Uh, th- do you think that cards like duress is that a card that you want to see in this matchup?
If I'm your opponent, no.
We see the Gix's command get shaved and shaving and invoke despair as well. It's great in the matchup, but you have to have it avoid all the duresses and all the counter magic and kind of get to that point. But we will see a Lear, Disciple of the Drowned here as well, which is a one of in the sideboard. So that's definitely an interesting take on the side of Skylar.
Lear coming into the main and also all of those counter spells. That that's a little interesting since you can't counter spells while Lear's on board.
But I mean, Skylar does have like a good smattering of other spells. It's a lot of removal in Skylar's deck, so it'll be interesting to see how they utilize the Lear for sure. As we see an opener of Duress, Fable of the Mirror Breaker, Invoke Despair. So a little oddball mana costs going on here, 1, 3 to 5. As we take a little looky-loo here at Andrea's hand. Well, we all have already seen Andrea's hand, but now Skylar has seen it as well. Double Bank Buster, a braid, uh, go for the
Yeah, gonna
throat.
gonna put that one Invoke Despair in the
Oh, yes.
graveyard right off the bat. That's exactly what I would have done as well.
We'll see Skylar with an insurance policy now in go for the throat. So if anything were to go terribly bad, but knowing the double Reckoner Bankbuster in Andrea's hand, especially if Skylar gets off to a slower start, we could see these Reckoner Bankbusters doing some work in this game. One of the better cards in this matchup. And speaking of that, Siphon Insight is now in Andrea's hand as well. And Fable of the Mirror Breaker on either side of our battlefield. So, any thoughts on how this game is going so far? Because it looks like both players are grinding.
Absolutely. So seeing Fable of the Mirror Breakers on both sides, obviously the one that gets out first tends to put you in a little bit more of an advantage because you get to attack with that goblin token, make the treasure, and potentially do a little something like play the Invoke Despair that gets rid of your opponent's goblin token and your Fable of the Mirror Breaker. So yeah, getting your Fable out first is definitely a big advantage in this matchup.
Yeah, that was backbreaking for Andrea. So we see Skylar with a very good grip on this battlefield now and just a Reckoner Bankbuster and not doing anything else right now. Keeping up go for the throat, a braid and siphon insight, as well as drawing a card off of the Bankbuster already on the battlefield as Skylar's reflection of Kiki Jiki has now flipped. So looks like first things first, we'll try to abrade that Goblin Shaman token. Skylar gonna say, okay, does have a make disappear in hand, but Andrea's got plenty of mana open. And
Yeah, if I'm Skylar, I'm like, okay, you can have my token as long as you don't kill my Kiki Jiki. That's the one I really care about because I'll just make another one.
we'll see Reckoner Bankbuster drawing a card here, and then a card for turn, Shieldred, and a land on the side of Andrea. And it'll be interesting to see what she decides to play out here. There are a lot of options. Is there, got to get rid of this reflection of Kiki Jiki. So that's first things first. So this go for the throat, gonna take care of that. Now with 4 mana open, what's the next play on Andrea's side? It looks like it's a pass of the turn.
Yeah, I think over on Andrea's side, at this point, I'm holding up the draw for the Bankbuster and the Siphon Insight to see what I can steal from Skylar.
So we see on Skylar's side a disdainful stroke and a negate. Negate being the draw for turn, drawing also a duress and a disdainful stroke
Ooh.
off of the loot from Reflection of Kiki Jiki. So quite a draw. Does Andrea do anything in response here? It looks like she will. Siphon Insight targeting Skylar. Gonna hope to be able to take a look at the top two if Skylar will allow it. The question is, will they?
I think I would, just because Andrea does have the 2 mana, and I don't think I wanna pay the casualty to, prevent that. It's a little risky letting Andrea take one of your cards, but just seeing what we do in Skylar's hand, I think I'm willing to allow it because I know I have the stroke, I have the removal, I have these pieces that no matter what she takes from me, I can probably counter it.
And it's definitely a big decision here. And it looks like it will happen. And we'll see Corpse Appraiser was the prize off of that Siphon Insight that Andrea cast. And Reckoner Bankbuster going to draw another card that will take care of the last counter on that Bankbuster. So a
Mm.
pilot and a treasure token, both for Andrea, and Siphon Insight, as well as an Invoke Despair off of that Reckoner Bankbuster. So we'll see this Bankbuster looking to get in. And not much that Skylar can do about this. So it looks like they're going to take 4, drop down to 16. And here in the second main, it looks like Andrea might be interested in the Corpse Appraiser. Nope, changing their mind. She is going with the Sheoldred instead, and that will come down. So go for the throat, going to take care of that. Holding on to the disdainful stroke, going to let the shield resolve and use a removal spell on it instead. What do you think the thought process was behind that?
I think the process is pretty simple. Like, I don't know what Andrea has in her hand. So I know this is a creature. I know I can target it with a creature removal. I'm going to do that and then hold this disdainful stroke back for something that may be potentially worse, like an Invoke Despair that we see in
Yes.
Andrea's hand.
Andrea is certainly grasping onto that Invoke Despair. Hold on now. Skylar doesn't know about it, but maybe they know about it, you know?
That
There's
they might be feeling it out.
I have an inkling, you know? As we see Graveyard Trespasser, a draw here on the side of Skylar. Siphon Insight here on the end step. Gonna take a little look at the top two. And ooh, Andrea with a Graveyard Trespasser of her own. Well, not of her own, of Skylar's own, but still. So so double Siphon Insight now in the graveyard for Andrea, has an Invoke Despair in hand, and a Corpse Appraiser and a Graveyard Trespasser, both in exile, is able to cast both of them should she wish, but it looks like just gonna fire off this Invoke Despair, decided it is time. And Skylar said, well, that means it is time for my disdainful stroke.
Yep. And Skylar's in a really good position now because we know Andrea has those 2 Siphon Insights in the graveyard. Graveyard Trespasser eats graveyards. Even the Corpse Appraiser, even if you're not trying to get the card advantage, you can still just eat that to prevent Andrea from getting it,
Right.
right?
So Graveyard Trespasser coming down and wanting to eat something here from Skylar's yard. And it looks like that was just eating an Invoke Despair.
Well, we do
So
know that Skylar has that Lier in hand or
that's
in
true. In the
deck,
deck
so
somewhere.
anything that can get eaten out of Skylar's yard is worth eating.
Yes. We see, as you had said, Graveyard Trespasser also coming down on the side of Skylar, going to eat that first Siphon Insight. And Reflection of Kiki Jiki is going to copy the Graveyard Trespasser, making a hasty little copy, but is going to be able to eat that second Siphon Insight. And might as well get in with the 3/3 since it's free and it's dying at end of turn anyway. Going to eat a little something else out of Andrea's graveyard. So we'll see what they decide to eat here. It looks like an Invoke Despair
Looks
on
like both of
Andrea's
them are
side.
just eating each other's invoked despairs. Like
Yes.
you can't have one in the graveyard, neither can I.
We see Reckoner Bankbuster just gonna jump in front because why not? No need to be scared there. Stormcarved Coast is the draw on the side of Andrea. As a Corpse Appraiser still waiting in the wings, waiting for their time to shine. And it may be soon because I don't know that there's anything to eat. It looks like these graveyard trespassers were starving themselves. But is there a world where you just cast a 3/3 for 3 on the side of Andrea?
I mean, yes, but no, because we know that Skylar's most likely not going to send the original copies of the Corpse Appraiser or Graveyard Trespasser when the Kiki Jiki's out there to just make a copy. So, but then again, you also have a 4/4 that can block, so um, it's a weird kind of stalemate currently.
Yes, and we see Andrea definitely thinking about this one. This is a big turning point in this game. Not wanting to fall too far behind the 8 ball, and Reflection of Kiki Jiki is definitely one of those cards that can put you there. So gonna get in with the Graveyard Trespasser and saying, yeah, I'm willing for trades, and trades will happen. So all of a sudden, this Corpse Appraiser's got some fodder, and Andrew could not have cast that any faster. Gonna eat one of those Graveyard Trespassers. This Corpse Appraiser gonna find hopefully something good. It looks like a second copy of Corpse Appraiser, so going to be able to eat that other Graveyard Trespasser, which is huge, because if this Reflection of Kiki Jiki were to copy that Corpse Appraiser on the side of Skyler, they won't get, there's nothing to eat. So they
Yeah,
wouldn't get
in my
anything out
mind,
of it.
I'm thinking Skylar was like, "This is okay because I can copy it," but having seen Andrea get 2 Corpse Appraisers, that kind of just, deleted that ability.
And we see a good draw on the side of Andrea in Go for the Throat, but there is a negate in Skylar's hand, so that will protect Skylar's creatures, as well as there is a Shieldred now, was the draw for turn on Skylar. So Andrea better hurry up and find something quick, because
Yeah, Shouldred's pretty darn good on a stalled out board.
yes, she is. This Reckoner Bankbuster is going to block the 3/3 Corpse Appraiser token, but is not that good of a blocker of this 4/5 Death Touch. Not too many things can block it very well. Reflection of Kiki Jiki going to trigger, so the token that's already gone is gone. Siphon Insight on upkeep. Gonna take a little look here. Top 2. What does Andrea find? It's
Ooh.
just a land. Oh, you hate that when you cast Siphon Insight and your choices are land. That feels so bad.
Yeah, this is looking a little rough for Andrea because that Braid can take out the Kiki Jiki, but that Shouldred, whether it's copied or not, you just having the original is still very dangerous.
Yes, it is. There is not much that Andrea can do at this point in time. She's gonna need a little more help than this. A Braid will take care of that reflection, but that 4/5 is the real problem now. Land in Andrea's hands. Skylar drawing a Shivan Reef, but Andrea is empty-handed now. So what
Yeah,
to
we're
do? What
kind
to
of at
do?
top deck wars here, but with the Shouldred on board, it's not looking great.
Oh boy, and a Shipwreck Marsh, the draw on Andrea's side, pass the turn back, and there's a negate. So Skylar gonna, just for safety's sake, fire off this duress, take a look, make sure it's maybe not any counter magic or something like that that could mess up their game here, and just gonna pass the turn back. And Shieldred is a cruel mistress. Oh, Xander's Lounge, I gotta cycle it.
That's the
Gotta draw
worst
the
when you
answer. Oh
cycle
no!
it and you're still taking the pings from Shouldred and it's just into another land. That's
Terrible. It's so tough, but unlicensed hearse on the side of Skylar. It's been lots of lands on the side of Andrea, and Skylar has really navigated this game very, very well. And they are on the precipice of taking this down as Andrea draws just another land for turn. And good games are exchanged. And so we have another victor. Skylar Warfield's going to take down this Grixis mid-range mirror, 2 games to none over Andrea. So good games to both of our players. Congratulations for making the playoffs to Andrea, and congratulations on moving on to top 16 to Skyler. They did phenomenal tonight, and can't wait to see them battle again later on this season. What an exciting night! That was
I'm
quite
having a great time. Honestly, I'm a little, when we see mirror matches, in my mind, I'm typically thinking, oh, it's going to be an hour. So I'm a little grateful that one was not quite an hour.
no, and it was very exciting, like back and forth. There were a lot of game actions, like changing of like advantages and things like that. Card draw. There's a lot of grinding,
I'm
exciting
excited to see all
gameplay.
the siphon insights. I love the card stealing back and forth, especially when it's like, ooh, I can play everything because my your deck is my deck.
It's like this could be anything. And with open deck lists, you ever like look and it's like a wish list. It's like, oh, I hope I hit one of their razor lashes. That would be really cool, or something, like. But what an exciting matchup, and so very well navigated by both of our players. And congratulations to again to Skyler for moving on. Just a reminder, this is the top 32 of VML. This is season number 9. We are down to 32 players from 128. We are sponsored by Wizards of the Coast and GLHF. Good luck, high five. If you have not checked out Megan and Maria on their podcast, you must. They are phenomenal, phenomenal people, and not to mention pretty good Magic players. So and commentators. We have had the pleasure of having them both guests commentate on the VML. So they are phenomenal people and we adore them. So big shout out to our sponsors as we get into our last match of the evening. I can't believe that already. I feel like I'm so excited. Everything's gone so quickly. But we are moving on to Randomchild. I had a pleasure of covering him last week. This week, he's bringing Selesnya enchantments, and I'm like, what is this? It's 2021. Oh my God. Like, what? I remember this deck from we were playing Rune Forge
Yes,
Champion.
I personally, season 7, Runes was my jam. So this
Right.
doesn't have the red incorporation, but it's got a lot of those key pieces from it still.
Yes. But listen, I am so here for this. You know what? Uh, he said that they saw it perform well over the weekend, and I did see a lot of very talented Magic players and bring this deck to some of the regional championships. So this deck is no joke. Celestia enchantments, just green white enchantments. Ossification, a huge add to any enchantments deck. It's just been absolutely phenomenal. We have a few sagas in there, teaching the Kieran. We have a restoration of Iganjo, and one of the biggest changes I feel like from the enchantment decks of old is sort of the concentration now on Catilda. It's Dawnheart Martyr. It used to be like a one or none of in some of the old Selesnya decks, or maybe just like a sideboard card. And here it's just it's a main piece. It's like the centerpiece of the deck. Do you have any thoughts about this new, like the making these old decks new against Selesnya enchantments list?
I am so happy. There's no other way to put it. I am just so happy. This was one of my pet decks, basically, and I love to see it revitalized. I love the addition of the ossification. Like, it's great when a new card can breathe some new life into a deck that may not have been at the forefront anymore.
Yes, and I'm so happy Randomchild has chosen to pilot this deck this week and saying that their Praetor title Apocalypse, one of their favorite sets, going with that. And that's it's a pretty intimidating one. If you want to take on the helm of Shieldred, I would, I'd watch out. So it sounds like Randomchild ready to battle, and he will be battling against Kayla Davidson, and she is on 5-color Atraxa, Rakdos Reanimator, 5-color Reanimator, whatever you like to call this deck, that's what it is. Speaking of new cards breathing life into old decks, but the thing is, was Rakdos ever really able to become an old deck? I don't think it's given the chance yet, but it just keeps getting new cards and new cards. And you would think Atraxa, it's like, oh, it's not, it's every color except red. So let's put it in this red deck. So
Honestly, looking at Kayla's deck, it very much feels very reminiscent of Grixis, just a little dry.
Yes. Dry Grixis.
That's kind of how it feels. You still get a little blue with the Atraxa, but it's a little bit drier Grixis, in my opinion.
I kinda love it, and I wish I could, change it now because like 5-color tracks is definitely dry Grixis. But we've seen quite a bit of this deck floating around. It hasn't really taken over. A lot of people sticking with sort of the traditional mid-rangey, Grixis builds and things like that. But this 5-color Atraxa deck has made a dent in the weekly metagame as we see uh it plays around the card Cruelty of Gix, the saga Cruelty of Gix, and bringing back Atraxa. So a bunch of ways to get Atraxa into the graveyard, like Liliana of the Veil or Fable of the Mirror Breaker and things like that. Definitely an interesting and powerful deck. So Kayla here, our prayer title, Torch of Defiance, looks like she's on fire, ready to get into this final match of the evening. Randomchild on Selesnya Enchantments versus Kayla Davidson on 5-color
That is a
Atraxa.
pretty great start for Randomchild, I can tell you from experience.
Right? Just like both my colors, 2 lands. This is great. Let's
Yeah, turn
go.
1 Generous Visitor into turn 2 Jukai Naturalist. Love it.
Kayla has a couple of sweepers in the main, double Brotherhoods and 2 Brotherhoods in the main, as we see one of them in her hand at the moment. Any thoughts on how to use Brotherhood's End against this deck? Because you have to be careful. These cards get so big so fast that a lot of times you try to maximize your value, but I don't know if you can wait
No,
when you
for
are.
this deck, you're gonna if you see a Generous Visitor turn 1, you know that entire deck is enchantments, so you've gotta use those Brotherhood's Ends and use them fast because otherwise, it's gonna get out of control and you're not gonna be able to keep it under wraps.
Yeah, and it looks like we aren't the only ones that know about the Brotherhood's Ends in Kayla's deck. Randomchild is very well aware of them himself. So going to play a Teaching of the Kieran rather than that Jukai Nationaler is going to get across for 2. Kayla gonna draw that 3rd land, untap. Never didn't have it. So it's all good and playing out that Fable of the Mirror Breaker. So a 2/2 Goblin Shaman and Teachings of the Kieran gonna grow this Generous Visitor even more. Boseiju, the draw on Randomchild's side, and he is thinking about playing it out as a land, or is he thinking about killing this Fable of the Mirror Breaker? We'll see.
Honestly, the green-white deck doesn't have a ton of removal pieces because it focuses primarily on make my creatures big, make them go. So having that Boseiju as a potential removal piece for that Fable, it's nice because you don't have many that can. But at the same time, when you're potentially stuck on 2 lands, having it come down as a land isn't the worst. Plus, if your creatures get too big, who cares?
Yes. And we see that Boseiju does come down as a land, but able to play the Restoration by Ganjo, getting a Plains. So mana, probably not a worry for Randomchild for the rest of this game, as Fable is going to loot away here. We see Shieldred go to the bin. Atraxa, one of the draws here, as well as a Mountain. So this Brotherhood's End is very close to not taking care of that Generous Visitor anymore. What do you think Kayla needs to do here?
I think Kayla is definitely either gonna need to slam that Brotherhood's End now, or because she can't play that Cruelty of Gix just yet. That could be an answer soon, but she doesn't have the mana at the present moment.
She does have a Go for the Throat in hand as well, but when a deck like Selesnya Enchantments makes a lot of tokens and flips a lot of sagas, it doesn't feel that great to have the 1-for-1 removal, as this 2/2 Spirit token happy to trade with the 2/2 Goblin Shaman. So that will make the 5th mana needed for Cruelty of Gix. And it looks like going to start here at chapter number 1. So going to take a little looky-loo at Randomchild's hand. Now we know that Kayla has a Shieldred in the bin, but has an Atraxa in hand. Was there any thought, do you think, to just skip and just put Shieldred in play and just kind of get that engine going?
I mean, I definitely think that's a consideration, but if I'm Kayla, I'm also thinking, Random Child has a full hand of cards. I might need to take a look at what I'm working with or working up against. Like, so I think getting information right now, it wasn't the worst choice, but I think having the shouldered out could have been a deterrent of taking, as much damage as I think she's going to end up taking this turn.
And we take a look at Commune with Spirits. Any one of these four is a choice. Touch the Spirit Realm, a Hallowed Haunting, or one of the two lands. And it looks like Random Child, he's not really interested in these lands here. So Touch the Spirit Realm will be the grab here, as Generous Visitor getting across. It's not the little wimpy 1/1 for 1 anymore. It is a 5/5 now getting across. So Kayla drops down to 10 and then is going to go down to 3 from the second. It's going to take 3, go down to 7 from this Cruelty of Gix chapter number 2. Yikes. That's scary, because that changes, now Random Child has lethal on board.
Yeah, we do know Kayla has that Brotherhood's End that will take out, a chunk of Random Child's board, but not that 5/5, and that's what's really dangerous. Which there's also the go for the throat, but Kayla only has 4 untapped mana that we can currently see. That Xander's Lounge is going to come in tapped, and she wouldn't be able to do the Brotherhood's End and go for the throat. However, that Haunted Ridge could change things up right now.
Yes, a Haunted Ridge is coming down here. We'll see. This reflection of Kiki Jiki was just not meant to be long for this world, as it flips and immediately goes to the graveyard. So doesn't feel great when you have to kill your own Kiki Jiki, but so be it. Stay alive on Kayla's side, as we see Commune with Spirits once again on Random Child's turn. We see Hollowed Haunting, a Restoration of Iganjo, Plains and Forests are the reveals. So plenty of choices.
I think I would be looking at that restoration personally. It's a bigger creature once it transforms. It gets stuff out of your graveyard, it gets you land. Yeah, that's what I would have done too.
Love it. Love it. We see growing the restoration that is on the battlefield as a creature already. It was a 3/4, is now a 4/5. And that, because that 5/5 Generous Visitor is already big enough, and why put all of your eggs in one basket, right?
Absolutely, you gotta diversify the field.
Yes, and we see that Random Child was right in doing that, as Go for the Throat will take care of that 5/5 Generous Visitor. So to the bin. Cruelty of Gix going to put a target creature from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So it does have the choice that Kayla can have her own Generous Visitor, 1/1 if she would like. But
Kayla does have a few enchantments in her deck, so
she has the choice. And the thing is, what will she choose? We also know that there's a Shieldred. I was going to say Catilda actually might be an option here, and it looks like that's what she will go with. Playing a Catilda and then a Shieldred to follow that up, a land for turn, and just Atraxa left in hand, and a Reckoner Bankbuster out on the battlefield as well. We'll see Random Child drawing his card for turns, Shieldred trigger. So Random Child, he goes down to 15. Restoration of Iganjo going to say you can discard a card and then return a card, mana value 2 or less, from the graveyard to the battlefield. Looking to get that Catilda value once again, perhaps on the side of Random Child, instead of discarding a land. And it looks like that will be the play here. So any thoughts on that?
yeah, I mean, I don't think Random Child can play that Catilda this turn. I think it's too much mana once it's disturbed, but you're gonna get something else. The Generous Visitor, not a bad choice. Then you have Touch the Spirit Realm up, which can take care of that Shieldred, and then you're just slamming into your own Catilda that Kayla has taken.
Yes, and we see Touch the Spirit Realm will do just that. It looks like choosing not to channel. Got to be careful because it's the mana cost here. So Touch the Spirit Realm actually going to target his own Catilda. So that'll do it. That's an impressive showing from the Selesnya Enchantments deck.
It was
For
it
sure.
was strong back in its day. So
Yeah. I suppose I have forgotten the ways of the enchantments. You know, I used to play Naya, so I missed my showdown of the skulls and such. But
yeah, I was definitely on the Naya version with your Runeforge champion, right? That's the one that goes and gets
yes,
your
yes. So definitely an interesting, but
This Curse of
definitely
Silence is
powerful deck.
interesting. That could,
Ooh.
you have to pick your cards carefully, but we know what Kayla has 4 ofs in her deck. So Curse of Silence, not bad, especially as a 1-drop that could easily, start racking up 1/1 counters.
Yes, for those of you out there, because like curses are not very common nowadays. So Curse of Silence is 1 white. It's an enchantment or a curse. Enchant player. As Curse of Silence enters the battlefield, you choose a card name. Spells with that name, uh, the enchanted player can cast, but it costs 2 more to cast. And whenever the enchanted player casts a spell with the chosen name, you can sacrifice Curse of Silence, and if you do, you draw a card. So it makes the spell more expensive, and you can choose at any point if they cast the spell, you can sacrifice it. So if they're playing, if you know that they have 3 Shieldred and they're casting their second Shieldred, you could go, well, I don't want to keep this out anymore. I'm not going to wait for their last Shieldred. I'll just sacrifice it and draw a card. So it's pretty. It definitely has its corners to perform, and perhaps
And
this
it's
is one of
so
them.
cheap. That's what I love
Right.
about it. It's so cheap.
Well,
I'm always
making
looking for a deal.
making Cruelty of Gix, Cruelty of Gix is already expensive at 5 mana. Imagine casting that at 7 mana. I mean, you cast it for 7 mana, you might as well cast Atraxa, right?
I mean, honestly, yeah, you've probably got some treasure tokens at that point to cast the Atraxa.
Yes. And we see our both players here keeping 7, kicking things off with a duress on Kayla's side. So gonna take a little look here at what Randomchild has going on. Double Hollowed Haunting, a Commune with Spirits, and a Jukai Naturalist. And it looks like one of the Hollowed Hauntings will be the choice from Kayla. So Commune with Spirits will kick things off from Randomchild's side. And Shigeki, a card that we have not seen in action here yet tonight, is going to be the choice. Spirited Companion, though, going to steal turn number 2. Not going to play out Shigeki or the Jukai Naturalist. Probably the most disposable of the 2 drops in the enchantments deck.
Oh, absolutely. It was a good dog. It got you a card, and if it goes to the graveyard, I'm sorry, puppy, but you've done your job.
Right. They're all good dogs. They're all good dogs. And we see Kayla deciding to, leave the puppy alone for now. So Fable of the Mirror Breaker going to come down, make that Goblin Shaman token 2/2. It's a pretty good blocker for that 1/1 anyway. But a Borrow Time in Randomchild's hand, thinking about it, flirting with it. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. It will come down to take care of that 2/2. So our little good boy gets in. Kayla down to 18. Fable of the Mirror Breaker ticks up to chapter number 2. We see no 4th land on Kayla's side right now. So is she pressured into looting away to find this 4th land? Does she need to dig?
Absolutely. Yeah, cuz she has some answers, but she needs more than this. She's going to need the mana. And she gets it, which is great. But yeah, if she didn't get that land, she was going to be very limited in what she could do, because this Selesnya deck is going to get out of hand quickly, and you have a few pieces of removal, but you need some blockers. You need a little bit more than what she's got going on currently.
So we see Kayla able to double spell here and is trying to out enchantment the enchantment deck as she casts her second copy of Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Randomchild going to say, no, I got a third one here in Hollowed Haunting. So that will come down. So a third, count them, 3 enchantments on the side of Randomchild. Needs quite a few more. Needs 7 total to set off that Hollowed Haunting to make it more important. But
To
it's
be
still
fair,
pretty
though,
good.
looking at Randomchild's hand, Jukai Naturalist, Spirited Companion, and Teachings of the Kirin, those are all 3 enchantments. And the Naturalist, it comes down for 2, but then it gives you a discount on the Companion and the Kirin. So that puts you up to 3, 4, 5, 6 just in the next turn.
I'm a big couponer. I'm a sucker for discounts. So I will take it. Kayla here, though, has successfully gotten out a reflection of Kiki-Jiki, and there is a Cruelty of Gix here. We've saw this come down last game. It wasn't quite enough to get her there. Will it be this time? We will see as we start once again from chapter 1. I'm gonna take a little look, and it's either Jukai Naturalist, Shigeki Spirited Companion that are going to the bin.
If I had to choose, I would get rid of that Naturalist in a heartbeat because the discount. You know, some people play taxes. I like to play coupons.
Yes, I'm all about it. So we see a Spirited Companion here, the consolation prize, since there is no longer a Naturalist, drawing a land, which is pretty good. Being able to now, Randomchild probably good on lands for the rest of the game, but wanted to be able to more than double spell, perhaps triple spell in the future, as we see Spirited Companion number 2 for the turn coming down, drawing. Those spirits are getting real big, real quick, and the enchantment count on Hollowed Haunting up to 5. So that is looming.
I love that Randomchild has a pack of dogs on his side.
Woof, woof. We see Cruelty of Gix saying, search up a card, put it into your hand, and shuffle. You lose 3 life. So right now, Kayla has the opportunity to find the best card in her deck. What is it?
Either the I mean, it has to be the Atraxa, right?
She would be able to if she copied the reflection and has the land, so could copy with the reflection, copy the Goblin Shaman token, and then plays out the Takanuma, attacks with both of the Goblin Shamans, and that would be 7 mana left over. So would be able to cast the Atraxa. Just hard cast it, because why bother?
It's a roundabout way of getting there, but yes.
Yes, I mean, this not exactly what these reanimator decks are meant to do. They're meant to reanimate it. Oh, but going to opt for duress, gonna say, you know what? I don't want to die. So knowing that Shigeki and Teachings of the Kirin are in Randomchild's hand, as well as now that she knows a land, going to take that Teachings of the Kirin that will perhaps briefly keep Randomchild off of the 7 enchantments that are wanted for Hollowed Haunting, and Graveyard Trespasser are going to come down, which is a fair like bump in the road to Shigeki, but it might just be a bump in the road now. And but also on the side of Kayla, having 2 active reflections of Kiki-Jikis can get out of hand real quick.
I was just about to comment on that. That is a nasty little it's not an infinite, but it goes pretty far type of combo.
Looks like Goblin Shaman happy to trade with Spirit Token, and gonna keep moving on, passing the turn back. Oh, I heard you like Hollowed Hauntings. So we see a second copy coming down here. That's gonna make, oh boy, that's gonna make some problems on the side of Kayla here.
It sure will.
We see a Braid is the last card in Kayla's hand. Both players will be empty-handed after this. A Braid is going to take care of one of the spirits, but there are now 3, and they have flying and vigilance. That's a lot, and this is 6 damage in the air. Oh boy. So Kayla is down to 9.
Honestly, I'm not sure if I would have taken out one of the spirits. I think I may have honestly even taken out the Shigeki once it hit the board, because then you'd be back down below 7 again, and then you wouldn't have flying.
All right, we'll see what kind of attack back Kayla can have here. Gonna copy Graveyard Trespasser at the end of turn. Gonna make one copy of a Reflection, one copy of a Graveyard Trespasser. Graveyard Trespasser is also going to be the target for the last chapter of Cruelty of Gix.
Oh my goodness.
This is a lot of damage.
But look what's in Kayla's hand. Like, oh, this is so difficult, because if you play that Brotherhood End,
Oh
you
my.
do wipe the board, but you wipe your own board as well.
Yeah, I mean, then Get While Again is good. We'll see if Kayla is happy to just make a bunch of copies of Graveyard Trespassers, get as much damage across as possible, maybe gain a little life, and then say bye-bye.
Do you think Randomchild, do you think he is kind of, you know, feeling out what's going on, what might be in Kayla's hand, the way she's tapping and attacking this way?
This attack, if I'm Randomchild, this attack is terrifying. Because I'm going, okay, so either Kayla realizes she's dead, or Kayla has a way to kind of almost make me dead, like, or to
Yeah.
kill, it's either a board wipe or the game's over. So this is one of one of those attacks where you kind of sit back and you go, oh, okay. Like, was this a like a Leroy Jenkins, and just kind of shooting her shot, seeing maybe I block wrong, or are there enough creatures to eat? Like, can she gain enough life? Or is this I have a wrath, so I might as well.
Yeah, I don't know. If I'm Randomchild, I'm probably thinking that that Brotherhood's End may be in her hand, and that's why
Oh.
she's just going all out. Because theoretically, if you were attacking and you had no other outs, you just keep on kiki jikiing, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Keep on keeping on. But oh, this is interesting. And it looks like going to opt to not Brotherhood's End, just to land the draw from Randomchild here, but now can activate Shigeki. So protecting the Shigeki, putting that back into hand, that will drop the Hollow Hauntings down to 6, but then recasting
And then
Shigeki.
making more spirits that way.
Yes. Will
That's
make
a nasty little combo. The bounce spirit creation.
Yes, and this is 6 damage once again. Vigilance attackers getting in. Blood Tithe Harvester the draw. So at least this time around, Kayla would have some recourse after casting a Brotherhood's End. And actually now, Graveyard Glutton does not die to the Brotherhood's End.
Yeah, no, that's a
That's a
huge
big.
a huge thing here. Is Kayla is going to be left with a board state. Would you lose the Kiki Jikis? Yes, but you're not losing everything.
No, and this is going to do it. Brotherhood's End is going to take care of all of the blockers. So we've got 3 Graveyard Gluttons getting in, gonna eat some things from the graveyard for good measure. But it looks like we have a game number 3 on our hands. A very, very
Yeah,
impressive and
that was
well
a
navigated.
great game
I
2.
cannot say with Kayla back up against the wall, she found a way to win that one, and I
Oh,
am super impressed.
yeah, I did not see the out, and she found it. That I am also very impressed.
She absolutely did, holding on to that Brotherhood's End, saying, you know what, if my opponent draws well here and I just die, then so be it. But instead of trying to avoid losing, she found a way to win. So instead of not losing, she won. So how great is that?
Honestly, I'm going to assume that just comes down to a lot of play testing and getting into some situations like that of, I'm in some dire straits, but this is my one way to get out, and, knowing that that's an option. Because I'll be honest, I didn't see it at first, and then once it
Right.
flipped, I was like,
Oh.
"Oh, okay."
Yes, she absolutely did play to her outs. Super impressive. And so because of that, she's being rewarded with the game number 3 here. As we take a look at opening hands, we see Ossification, Catilda, Commune, Jukai Naturalist, and Teaching. So a really loaded, stocked hand on the side of Randomchild. Taking a look, going to be able to grab that third land here, and he is off to the races. So
Mm-hmm.
and now on Kayla's side, we see five. A fifth land was drawn for turn. Liliana go for the throat and a braid. So a lot of 1-for-1 removal, which doesn't feel great against these spirit tokens.
Yeah, I agree. We do have that Cruelty of Gix, and with the Liliana, if we can get that Atraxa in hand, that would be really great. The Cruelty of Gix, tutor it out, Liliana to throw it away.
Yeah, that could definitely change things up real quick. We'll see. Kayla debating on using a piece of removal here on the 2/2 spirit. I'm going to save myself a little life here, stay at 20. So we'll see Catilda coming down here to follow up in the second main on the side of Randomchild, a second copy of Cruelty of Gix, and Liliana, a pretty clean answer to this Catilda.
Mm-hmm.
That
All right.
will Teachings of Kieran gonna flip here. So a 1/1 Jukai Naturalist gonna come down, and Ossification, the very powerful card, like we had said earlier, one of the biggest adds to these enchantment decks, going to take care of Liliana, and a second Ossification in Randomchild's hand, as well as Fable of the Mirror Breaker is the draw for turn. So plenty of ways to discard an Atraxa, but you need the Atraxa. So
Mm-hmm. that is a key part of this deck, is getting the Atraxa.
either way, Fable of the Mirror Breaker, one of the most, if not the most powerful card in Standard. So pretty good play either way, as we see the 2/2 Goblin Shaman joining us once again. Honestly, it's probably like the 20th time it's been cast in any match again, for us tonight. So super powerful card, cannot deny. Going to enchant the same planes here with the Ossification, eating that Goblin Shaman. No fear on that. No land destruction in this deck. Needs all its colors, so can't play things like a Field of Ruin, as we see Randomchild getting in the red zone. And
Trying to
still,
decide which of these options from the Kieran touched Orochi. Looks like gonna take that a braid away.
yeah,
And
and
diversifying the threats.
yes, gonna gain a bunch from that Jukai Naturalist and Fable of the Mirror Breaker here on chapter 2, but not exactly looting away anything that interesting. That Jukai Naturalist is large, a 7/7 flying lifelinker. Cool boy.
Yeah, that is nothing to look down on. That's a big chonker.
And we see Kayla playing out her fifth land. Unlicensed Hearst is going to be the follow up. Has a go for the throat in hand. So able to answer the Jukai Naturalist, but there's still quite a bit on Randomchild's side that Kayla is going to have to reckon with, as Beseju is the draw on Randomchild's side, as and followed up with another Catilda Dawn Heart Martyr. So, which is large in itself, a 7/7 as well. This is an attack for lethal.
Yep. Kayla will have to answer that disturbed Catilda.
Yes,
Or the Jukai Naturalist with the enchantment.
absolutely. Yes, the Jukai Naturalist has been enchanted by Catilda's Rising Dawn. It has flying lifelink projections from vampires and gets +X/+X. So interestingly,
It's funny, yeah, the Blood Tithe Harvester, it is protected
right.
from it.
It absolutely is. So definitely, a corner case, but it certainly would come up in these decks, and with Blood Tithe Harvester being so popular in the meta at the moment. But now Kayla is staring down a 5/5 flyer in Catilda Dawn Martyr, and Spirited Companion and Kieran. It's a lot.
This is difficult because if you take care of the current Catilda on board, if you can't exile it, it just comes back as the enchantment, which is also pretty bad.
Yeah, it's just the same thing, just attached to another body. And Randomchild has multiple bodies out there on the
Mhm.
battlefield.
That
So
little doggy can do some work.
it could be a flying doggy. So we'll
Yeah.
see. Cruelty of Gix here. The question is, what is the choice? What chapter is Kayla going to start at? Because chapter 2, so must have a plan, because anything else makes this lethal.
Yeah, this is difficult because there's only so many options. The cut down is one.
Cut down helps, it shrinks the Catilda, and using reflection of Kikijiki as kind of gumming up the battlefield from that the doggy getting across. Oh, except for this Boseiju, which will not be played as a land this time around, as it was in game number 1. We'll see
Yeah,
that.
I mean it's it's not quite lethal, but if Randomchild draws literally any enchantment, it will be.
Yes, and I mean, playing a deck that's called Selesnya Enchantments, you draw an enchantment, Curse of Silence, can name just about, what do you name here for some flavor? You are already dead?
That's rough.
Oh, but, oh, what a match. That was just such good gameplay from both of our players there. But Randomchild on Selesnya Enchantment is going to take that one down 2-1 over Kayla Davidson on 5-color Atraxa. But what an
Yeah,
impressive
great
performance.
games. I was so happy that that went to game 3. I
Oh,
won't
me too.
lie, Enchantments is one of my pet favorites, so can I say I'm a little happy that's the one that won? Yes, but great job to both players.
It's funny. I play, I've been a Grixis pilot for most of this season. So I see a lot of, I'm a big fan of the Shieldriz, the Fable of the Mirror Breaker, those sort of cards. And I can't say that I haven't, it was an absolute pleasure to watch Kayla pilot that deck in game 2. Just an absolute work of art. It was like a dance. Like she just knew exactly what to do and when to do it. I am blown away by the level of gameplay from all of our players, honestly, tonight. Big congratulations to Randomchild. He's going to be moving on to our top 16, and good games once again to Kayla for playing so wonderfully, and we hope to see her back again next season. She is a mainstay here in the VML. But that's going to do it for our night tonight. That went by so quickly. So, but we've built ourselves a top 16. Super exciting. I just want to say a big thanks again to Wizards of the Coast and GLHF for their sponsorship. You both are so wonderful. We couldn't be doing what we were doing without Wizards, without their support, and without Megan and Maria. A big shout out to both of them. And again, I want to give a shout out for our players, our casting team, our admin team, our viewers. Thank you all so much for joining us again tonight. Make sure you're following us on Twitter, twitter.com/VMLMTG. We're on Twitch, twitch.tv/VMLMTG. We're pretty much just VMLMTG everywhere. And a big thank you to my co-host this evening, Misha. We're getting to be best friends.
I
I
know.
feel like we get to work together all the time now.
Yeah, 3 times this season now.
We are. It's been, honestly, it's been phenomenal. I've loved having you on board. It's been such a pleasure working with you these past few months. And
I've
you
really
have
enjoyed
been,
working with you too, Nicole. Anytime I get to cast with you has been a great time.
oh, thank you. And I like the secret cosplay previews that I'm getting. So for all of those who don't know, you should follow her, Magic Mishamigo, on Twitter. She does the most phenomenal cosplays, and y'all aren't going to want to miss her next one. Well, I don't know if it's your next cosplay or if it's just your next Magic cosplay. Is that it back in the backyard round back there?
little preview of what I've been working on.
Oh, can we get some guesses in chat? Oh, it's a hat. I love it.
It's like a Kentucky Derby hat is what I've been Calling it basically.
That's a dream. I love it. And I just once again just shout out, for Trans Day of Visibility. We stand in solidarity with all the transgender people part of our community, and the ones that aren't part of our community yet, our players, our judges, casters, viewers. We here at the VML have worked so hard to try to make the most welcoming and open community, and we stand with you. We love you, and we're all family here. And on that note, I would like to make my biggest thank you every week to our most wonderful producer, Phoebe. Phoebe, we love you. More and more every single day. We could, the VML would not be without Phoebe, and you can quote me on that. I'm telling you, would not be what it is without Phoebe. She has been the most fabulous producer, person, and friend since day one, and so I would be lost without her. The VML would be lost without her. So Phoebe can never go anywhere ever. That's pretty much what it is.
Well, okay.
You're stuck with us, Phoebe.
So hold that thought just for a moment, because you were worried that I had actually planned an April Fool's joke. I haven't, but I kept that promise that I hadn't done it, and I think that deserves a little bit of. Wait a minute.
I'm not ready for this. What's happening?
There we go. I've done my yearly duty. Thank you.
Phoebe, you are phenomenal. And all of you out there, cannot wait to see you all next week for the top 16 of the VML. We'll be carving ourselves a top 8 starting next week here with a live match once again. Cannot wait. Catch you all same bat time, same bat channel, twitch.tv/VMLMTG, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Have a wonderful night, everyone.